Scientists at Rice University in Houston, Texas, have been awarded a prestigious prize for reanimating the corpses of dead spiders and converting them into robotic gripping tools. This is, believe it or bullshit. The 2023 Ig Nobel Prize for Mechanical Engineering went to a 5-person team led by Assistant Professor Daniel Preston and PhD student Tae-Fei Yap for their contributions to what they have officially termed necrobotics, the use of dead organisms as robotic components. The dead wolf spiders, once activated with a puff of compressed air through a hypodermic needle jammed into their body cavity, can grip objects weighing up to 130% of their own body mass. The team reports the spider corpses can perform roughly 1,000 grab-and-release cycles before their joints begin to crack and degrade. Preston has suggested the necrobots could eventually be used in microelectronics assembly and delicate scientific sampling. The spiders are also biodegradable, which the researchers argue makes them more environmentally responsible than traditional robotic grippers. Real Nobel Prize winner Barry Sharpless presented the award during the virtual ceremony. Here's how this whole thing actually started. Fei Yap was walking through the laboratory one day when she noticed dead spiders curled up in the corners. Most people would have grabbed a paper towel. Yap grabbed a question: why do spiders die with their legs pulled in like that? A quick literature search revealed the answer. Spiders, unlike most creatures, do not have antagonistic muscle pairs, the opposing muscle groups that allow you and me to extend and contract our limbs. Instead, spiders rely on flexor muscles to curl their legs inward toward their body and hydraulic pressure to push their legs outward. The hydraulic fluid in question is hemolymph, essentially spider blood, which gets pumped through chambers in each leg joint. When a spider is alive, it actively controls tiny valves in each leg to regulate that pressure, allowing it to walk, jump, and generally be terrifying. When a spider dies, it loses control over those valves. The hydraulic pressure drops. The legs curl inward. Nature's default setting, it turns out, is fetal position. Yap brought this observation to Preston, whose lab specializes in soft robotics and pneumatic systems. According to NPR, what happened next was essentially a game of, what if we just stuck a needle in there? The team euthanized wolf spiders by freezing them for about a week, then inserted a 25-gauge hypodermic needle into each spider's prosoma, the main body chamber that houses the hydraulic system. A drop of superglue sealed the needle in place. From there, they connected the needle to a syringe and started pumping air. The legs extended. They released the pressure. The legs closed. They had just turned a dead spider into a goddamn claw machine. The team published their findings in July 2022. And the study went exactly as viral as you'd expect research involving zombie spider robots to go. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert did a segment on it. A father-son duo in Australia reached out to say they'd successfully replicated the experiment in their backyard on the first try. Preston noted that despite looking like it had come back to life, the spider was definitely still dead, which is either reassuring or somehow worse, depending on your perspective. The researchers maintain this isn't just a party trick. Traditional mechanical grippers have a lot of moving parts that can fail. Dead spiders apparently are more reliable. They're also free, widely available, and when they eventually wear out, you can throw them in the compost. Nature does all the work for us, Preston explained. We just harvest the spider and use it for the gripper. The team hopes this shit will inspire more research into sustainable robotics. For now, they're the proud owners of a fake $10 trillion Zimbabwean bill and a trophy they had to print out and fold themselves. In other news tonight, researchers across the country continue to push the boundaries of what can reasonably be called science, reminding us once again that curiosity rarely asks permission before getting weird. Our next report involves another situation where conventional wisdom appears to have been entirely optional. Chinese scientists have constructed a facility that simulates the gravity of the moon using extremely powerful magnets. The inspiration for this engineering achievement was a 1997 experiment in which a physicist floated a live frog in midair. The research facility, located in Suzhou in Jiangsu province, houses a vacuum chamber containing a miniature lunar surface measuring 60 centimeters in diameter. Lead scientist Li Ruilin from the China University of Mining and Technology told reporters the device can make gravity disappear for as long as researchers require, representing what he called the first of its kind in the world. The artificial moon will be used to test equipment and structures before sending them to the actual moon, where gravity is 1/6 of Earth's. China plans to land astronauts on the lunar surface by 2030. The frog, incidentally, survived the original experiment and reportedly showed no adverse effects from temporary weightlessness. it remains the only amphibian to have experienced simulated space travel without leaving the planet. Let's walk through how we got from a floating frog to a simulated lunar research facility. In 1997, a physicist named Andre Geim was working at Radboud University Nijmegen's high-field magnet laboratory in the Netherlands. One Friday evening, after what Geim himself has described as a few beers, he set an electromagnet to maximum power and poured water straight into the expensive machine. He still cannot remember why he behaved so unprofessionally. The water did not drain out. Instead, it formed floating balls suspended in the vertical bore of the magnet. The feeble magnetic response of water, a billion times weaker than iron, was somehow sufficient to counteract gravity. Geim brought in his colleague Michael Berry, and the two began testing other objects. According to Live Science, they successfully levitated strawberries, cherry tomatoes, hazelnuts, and eventually a live frog. The phenomenon they were exploiting is called diamagnetic levitation. Every atom contains electrons orbiting the nucleus, generating tiny magnetic fields. Apply an external magnetic field strong enough, about 10 Tesla, or roughly 100 times stronger than a refrigerator magnet, and those atomic fields push back against the applied field with enough force to counteract gravity entirely. Since frogs are mostly water, and water is diamagnetic, the frog floated. The image of a hovering frog went viral, at least by 1997 standards. Many assumed it was an April Fool's Day prank since the paper appeared in the April issue of Physics World. Geim and Berry won the 2000 Ig Nobel Prize in Physics for their achievement. "We were asked first whether we dared to accept this prize," Geim later wrote, "and I take pride in our sense of humor and self-deprecation that we did. The recognition brought unusual requests." The leader of a small religious group in England reportedly offered the scientist £1 million to levitate him in front of his congregation to improve his public relations. They declined. Geim remained the only scientist in history to hold both an Ig Nobel and an actual Nobel Prize, the latter awarded in 2010 for his work on graphene, a single atom-thick sheet of carbon. The man floated a goddamn frog on a Friday night and then went on to revolutionize material science. Some people just operate differently. Fast forward to 2022. Chinese researchers looked at Geim's levitating frog and saw infrastructure. Liru Elan's team built their vacuum chamber to house an artificial lunar landscape of rocks and simulated moon dust, supported by a magnetic field strong enough to make small objects weightless. Responding to the news, Geim told the South China Morning Post he was pleased. His purely educational experiments on diamagnetic levitation led to applications in space exploration. He did note that magnetic levitation is not technically the same as anti-gravity, but there are situations where mimicking microgravity with magnets could prove invaluable. The facility allows scientists to test how lunar drilling equipment performs, whether structures can survive the stress of reduced gravity, and how materials behave during creep testing over extended periods. Some experiments take seconds, others take days. All of them are now possible because a physicist got curious after a few beers and ruined what was probably a very expensive electromagnet. The frog remains unavailable for comment. Geim's facility has since published additional research. China's artificial moon continues to operate. Both stories tonight involve scientists taking something most people would consider useless or disgusting, dead spiders, a random frog and a magnet, and turning it into actual innovation. So here's the question. What's the weirdest thing you've ever done out of pure curiosity that actually led somewhere useful? Real stories only. Drop them in the comments. That's Believe It or Bullshit. Subscribe now. Someone somewhere is already planning our next episode.